The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Now, I did an earlier video on this with an introduction and kind of a general overview to save you from reading the book if you don't have a lot of time. I kind of gave you the cliff notes on mantras to use. And the theory really behind this is that by allowing other people to just be themselves and allowing you to be yourself, getting your own ego and judgment out of the way, how that can truly lighten your load and set you up for a life that's filled with much more happiness and joy. So today what I wanted to do is go through the first section in this book that I feel is really relevant, and that is you and the let them theory. And the four principles within this area is managing stress, fearing other people's opinions. We're going to spend a lot of time there. Dealing with someone else's emotional reactions, and overcoming chronic comparison, or what I like to call comparanoia. I'm Jackie Ulmer. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com. Leave me a comment if you've read this book and what your thoughts are. So starting with this first section on managing stress, the first quote is amazing. The more you let other people live their lives, the better your life gets. Now that can be really difficult for us because we tend to think and believe that other people's actions are responsible for our own happiness, and that anything that we choose to do, how we choose to live, that other people are involved in making us happy or not happy. And the reality of it is you and I get to choose joy and happiness on any given day. Now, I like to say the pursuit of happiness, sorry, Will Smith, is misguided, because in any given day, you're going to be happy and sad, and sometimes both in the same day, depending on circumstances. Someone gets super sick, there's a car accident, your hot water heater breaks, there's a death. All of those things create a sense of unhappiness in us at the time, right? And we can't prevent that. Now, there's that saying out there that human pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. I believe that's a Buddhist quote. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I believe it is. Drop a comment if you know it to be different, or if you even know who originated that. I'm not going to look that up right now. So I always say I'm pursuing joy because I can be unhappy about something, be frustrated, be angry in the moment, but still overall have that sense of joy and peace and calm. And I've realized that about other people. I mentioned in the first video that I did, which I'll link in the show notes below, that people come into our lives for reason, season, or lifetime. And as most of us know with family members, we say we don't choose our family. I tend to believe a little differently, but we can choose our friends. And we also can choose the boundaries that we set for ourselves. Again, not ultimatums, not asking them to change, but boundaries that we set for ourselves around anybody who comes into our life, family member or not. And when we set those boundaries, that can make us a whole lot happier. So we know that life is stressful, right? It's going to be stressful. It's kind of like on any given day, we're going to have happiness and unhappiness, anger and contentment. All of those different emotions can flood through us in any given day. We can go from the highs to the lows, back up to the highs again, depending on what happens. And it's kind of funny. I always think back in March of 2020, my granddaughter was born in the morning of March 2nd. And my daughter experienced the tornado in Nashville on the same day. So I went from the highs of having this new granddaughter and being thrilled with this new life. By the way, it wasn't my daughter's child, it was my son's. And then at the same time being horrified because I was 1,500 miles away while she was in a studio apartment with lawn chairs and pool gear and everything flying up by her window, and this tornado literally coming right through the section by her apartment building. So I always look at that and think it's so interesting that in that same day, I felt really most ranges of emotions that could be out there. And when you think of your own life, you will come up with those same scenarios for yourself. So life is stressful, but the reality of it is it's how we react to those stressors in our lives that make all the difference. And so for me, part of the let them theory with stress is just to realize it's going to come into my life. At this stage of my life, I've learned to look at almost everything as a non-emotional observer as best I can. I don't have it perfected, but write that down, non-emotional observer. That is to allow things to come through your life, happen in your life, and try to manage your emotions around it as best you can. So it's kind of like driving in traffic. I've learned not to be frustrated anymore when I have to drive through traffic. I plan ahead now. I know where the traffic backups are going to be at specific times. Certainly, I don't control those, middle of the day crashes that back everything up. But what I've learned to do is through podcasts and books on tapes and all of that, I choose now to look at that as a gift to me in a way that I'm going to gain some time and I'm just going to relax. Maybe I'll listen to jazz music. Maybe I'll listen to a podcast. Maybe I'll listen to something like that that can educate me, entertain me, inspire me, or certainly get me in that Zen moment. So I like to look at the driving test, the airport stress test, all of those things. And she references the airport stress test in the Let Them theory, which is essentially we don't control those things, but things are going to happen in our life, and how we manage our own stress levels around those and our own reactions is going to make all the difference in the world. So next time you are in a stressful situation, take a step back, get into that neo role, non-emotional observer, and ask yourself, what can I control in this moment? And the reality of it is the only thing that we can control is our reaction to something. So work the best that you can to manage your reaction to different things like that. And also allow yourself to feel frustrated, but give yourself a countdown, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to process that emotion, and then I'm going to let it just simply move right through me and allow me to do other things. So when you can learn to manage your own stress levels and ask, what's the worst that could happen in this situation? And what's the best that could come out of this situation? And then begin to plan for how you'll handle things regardless. Because we don't control the outcome on so many things, but we do control our reactions, which ultimately allows us to have some agency and some control over our own well-being in those situations. When you own your own reactions, you truly take back your power. You take back control over your own power to feel and express in the way that you most desire to be. So I hear you saying already, yeah, but other people stress me out. My spouse or partner stresses me out. My best friend, my boss, my children, whatever it is. No, actually, they don't. They're just being themselves. You allow yourself to feel that feeling of being stressed out. And I know there wants to be a huge resistance to this. I get it. I had resistance to it for a long time too. But when I could take that step back as the neo, the non-emotional observer, I could ask myself, what difference does it really make in my life? Now, I can project ahead out of a fear-based situation of what might happen, but I don't really truly know. And the reality of it is everyone is on this earth on their own journey, and I have to let other people experience their life, suffer the consequences, learn the lessons, experience the highs, the lows, and everything else just like me. And I always ask myself, who do I want dictating to me how I'm going to live my life? And when I can ask myself that question first, again, as the non-emotional observer, it makes it easier for me to say, if I don't want that person telling me how to behave, then I have no right, if you will, to try to do the same for another. So let people live their lives, let them create stresses, but just manage your reaction to those stresses. You always get to control your next move. You get to take a pause, take a step if you need to, use my 24-hour rule, which is basically when anything hits me that slightly triggers me, I do not respond right away, whether it's a text, an email. Now, when you're face to face with someone, you can actually do this as well and just say, I got to really think about that one for a minute. And most of the time, the things that really trigger us big aren't necessarily face to face. It's a phone call, an email, a text message, something doom scrolling social media that we might run into, those type things. So again, just be aware and take a pause and choose what your reaction is going to be in that. Because again, you control your next move. So that's what I've got for you today from the Let Them theory, the very first part in the first section in the book, which is managing stress. The next part we're going to get to is fearing other people's opinions, because I think that's a big one. And I know, especially as women, I know a lot of men who do this too. So I don't want to alienate the two, but we tend to be people pleasers, and people pleasers are the ones who fear other people's opinions. And this is something that I've worked with clients around for decades, getting over that, especially with social media. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Give me a comment. Let me know what was valuable for you out of this, what you have to share with the rest of the community, and then make sure that you are watching the playlist on the Let Them theory. I'm Jackie Almer. Grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com.